Hello guys, welcome back to the founders stage. So it's 2 p.m. and we're gonna continue with a fireside chat. We're gonna talk about building tech sales teams and Riga. What are the pros and cons and challenges? So it will be a fireside chat with Lauris Lietavietis, who is now heading a sales division at Prezi, and Natalie Novit. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being here this afternoon. We have such a really exciting program on this afternoon in the founder stage, but really want to thank you so much for joining us here because we have a really exciting fireside chat. So Lauris, tell us about Prezi and Infogram for anyone that doesn't happen to know a little bit about the company, the background, and the story.
Sure. Hi all, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. So Infogram is a Latvian tech company, provides data visualization software. We're actually pretty old already. We're going to turn 8 years old next week.
That's super exciting.
Yeah.
Birthday.
We've been operating from Riga, Latvia, and we've been building our sales operations for almost 6 years already. 2.5 years ago, we were acquired by Prezi. At that time, we were already substantially big, working from Riga globally. Yeah, since then we've been part of Prezi, which is around 10 times bigger company than we are, which provides presentation software and which is based in San Francisco, originally out of Budapest, Hungary. So since then, I've had a chance also to work with Prezi European sales team.
Great, great. And you kind of are working kind of two roles at Prezi and Infogram.
Right, yeah, I'm leading Infogram global team, which is based here. So the customer team, so sales, customer success, and support. And for Prezi, I'm leading our EMEA sales and customer success teams, which are actually now also based here in Riga since the end of the last year.
Yeah, so can you talk a little bit about that? So what were they seeing about the sales cycle here in Riga that encouraged them to really take notice and bring their sales team to Riga?
Yeah, so actually, so right after the acquisition and when we were kind of exchanging practices, and an interesting observation was that not only we were able to learn from Prezi, but also they were able to learn from us. And in fact, there were some areas in which we were better, in which we as a sales team were better than the US sales team based out in San Francisco, US. And at the end of the last year, we still had a sales team in Budapest, which was moved eventually to Riga. And that was a deliberate and calculated decision by us and Prezi executive team to build it from here, because they like what they saw. And because there are some things that we really can excel at in terms of sales.
Yeah, and I think you're saying something really, really interesting here, that the Silicon Valley team really recognized what was actually being done from Riga, and also the team in Hungary was seeing, you know, there's some real excellence here. So kind of thinking from the startup perspective, there's a lot of founders in the room, and you've been with Infogram from the beginning, so understanding the development of the sales team from kind of going from small and growing global from that perspective. So when thinking about founders and they're looking about where they should be locating, what are some of the things that they should be keeping in mind when it comes to developing a sales team?
Right, that's a great question and a difficult question. Well, we're not that big also, something to bear in mind. We're like 20-something people overall in terms of our salespeople, sales team. I guess 22 or so at the moment. But, well, definitely when thinking about that, well, you should be geography agnostic, that's my opinion, because especially in software, and unless you are selling something that's substantially more expensive than, let's say, 50K a year, well, remote selling is standard, and inside sales teams is standard, and people are used to buying that way. And in fact, unless you are selling something for hundreds of thousands a year, you even cannot afford the field sales team, most likely. So that's the first of all. And yeah, it is possible to do it from here, and we've been doing that for 6 years. So like 40% of our customer base is in US, another 40% is in Europe, and then like 35 rather, and then 30 is the rest of the world, which is Asia, which is Australia, and so on. So it's possible. It's support and sales and everything. So yeah, it's, there are no borders in that sense. And the first question that I would ask is, who are our customers, where are they, and how they want to buy?
Mm-hmm. So let's kind of deconstruct that, because there's a lot of assumptions about sales that, you know, I have to be located where my customers are.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Again, of course, it depends on what you are selling, but if you are selling a software product, if it doesn't cost more than 100,000 a year, then that's wrong assumption.
Right, okay. And what about another assumption is, you know, we have to be located in San Francisco.
Right. Well, everything is very relative. Smaller market, well, obviously, has limitations, but bigger market, which is extremely competitive, has limitations as well. And we've had a chance to work hand in hand, like with our San Francisco sales team, and we're good. We're even better. So considering the living cost, which is probably 7x of what's here, I guess the answer is quite obvious. And also, the misperception typically is that, well, sure, sometimes and very often you do need experienced salespeople, and in San Francisco or in more developed typical startup locations, you would find people with all sorts of experiences. However, no matter what are the experiences, you still need to onboard them. You still need to train them on what's your product, on what's your sales process, who are your customers, how you pitch, how you discover, so on and so forth, which is very often forgotten. And unless your product is very, very specific, you can actually hire pretty junior people with the right profile, with right characteristics, and drive and develop them into amazing salespeople. And this is something that's very often forgotten, onboarding.
Yeah, and what are some of the things that you can do with your sales teams here in Riga that would be really a lot more challenging in a larger and more expensive market?
Sorry, could
kind
you...
of, so speaking to that onboarding process,
Yeah. Oh,
which
yeah.
I think is
Yeah,
really
yeah,
unique.
okay.
It kind of illustrates a real difference
Okay.
that what you can do here, that would
Okay,
be a
yeah.
little bit more difficult elsewhere.
I mean, maybe I'll, rather than get back to the question of onboarding in general, well, average time to ramp to be 100% effective in software sales by data, by research, is around 5 to 6 months. Which means that if we hire even experienced salesperson today, we can no way expect that he will be anywhere near his goal in next week, next month, or even in 2 months. And the goal of onboarding is, it's also not that, okay, now let's take 3 months. Let's assume it's 3 months and let's throw him in and let's see. It needs to be a guided process. And again, it's about who are your customers, what's your product, they need to know it inside out, how your customers are buying, what kind of conversations have you need to have with them, how do you do discovery, how do you pitch, how do you demo, what's the sales process like, who's involved, who's making decisions, who's stakeholders, so on and so forth, lots of stuff. So that's all guided process for us that during the period of 3 months, all our new salespeople are going through.
So there's kind of this false assumption that, you know, if you get the right talent, you get the right skills, and you get that really experienced salesperson, you can be making those deals very quickly. But that's just not the case.
I would argue that no, that's definitely not the case. I mean, of course, yes, sometimes more experienced person would do that faster, but still, you cannot do it without it. Maybe even like experienced sales persons will know themselves what do they need to learn, and they still will. They know what kind of expectations can be set towards them.
Right, so kind of working with the teams and developing that onboarding process is also this chance to really integrate them into the company culture.
Oh yeah, definitely. And if we're talking about like, do we hire for skill or do we hire for personality? I mean, both matter, and it depends on what you are selling. I mean, if you are selling something to C-level bank executives, well, obviously, yeah, that would require a specific kind of salesperson who probably has dealt with that buyer before. However, if that's a data visualization software, well, that wouldn't really be the case.
Mm-hmm. And one of the other misconceptions when working with distributed teams and kind of this talk about, locate your sales team in the US is because you can get a really international sales team.
Well, that also, another question, important question is, and maybe a little bit going back to like when you're building and typical kind of considerations or problem areas is, you cannot fix the product problem or marketing problem with sales. When you start building sales, well, obviously you need to have product market fit, and you need to have some sort of lead channels. Because the role of sales is to close the leads. The role of marketing is to generate leads. And also, so that needs to happen in the right order. So to a very large extent, also your sales model will depend on what's your lead generation model and how your sales cycle looks holistically. And if that's inbound, if that's inbound marketing, if that's inbound and inside sales team, well, then again, geography doesn't matter.
Yeah, and so don't think about your sales team as kind of this Band-Aid to fix problems that are kind of deeper within the company.
Right, yes.
And something that I think is really impressive about the Prezi and Infogram story when it comes to sales is that you're based here, you're looking at both an EMEA market and an international market. And you've been really successful at attracting international candidates to come to Riga to join the sales team.
Yeah, that's actually an interesting observation. We've been quite international with our sales team. We have a few Lithuanian guys working there. We have an Indian guy. We used to have Estonian guy, Canadian, Australian, Brazilian, and probably a few more. And now, and that's been actually for a while, for every job ad that we're posting for sales customer roles, 20–30% of applications come outside Latvia. And these are Latvians living abroad. So recently, for instance, a guy who was living for 7 or so years in Canada traveled back to Latvia and now is based here. Now in one current hiring process, we have a lady who's based in Austria and is thinking about coming back here. So these are Latvians living outside. But these are also people from other countries which are actually eager to consider to moving here. Because living cost is really competitive. Because, if I talk to my team in Budapest, I know what kind of people we had there and whom we have here. Well, they don't know borders. And they are eager to travel if they find a good fitting and satisfactory job for them. And you can attract even international talent to Latvia. And I wouldn't only be limited by the local job market, which is, by the way, pretty good as well, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And I think what's really special about that, you've talked about, the cost of living is low, but there's a lot of other really great qualities about the Latvian.
Right. Well, in terms of qualities, I think, I haven't done research, so I cannot say that this is statistically significant, but My observation would, well, first of all, education. You can get lots of very well-educated people, and yeah, we know we do not have enough engineers. We have lots of people that study social sciences, but guess what? Social sciences are perfect for sales. Then in terms of their personalities, really lots of people that are driven and that are willing to succeed, which is extremely important. And then the work ethic, which is extremely important as well. And that is something that is very, very difficult to teach. That is something that is there or not. You can't teach selling as the process. That's math, that's skill, that's not art. But you cannot teach the personality. And we can find pretty good people here.
Yeah, so I think that's a really important message for founders that are looking to develop sales teams in Riga, that there is a lot of potential in their home market that might not be untapped.
Right, and what you need is personality more important than skill. If skill, then what kind of skill? If experience, then what kind of experience? Domain expertise, what kind of domain expertise? Depends on what kind of company you are, what kind of stage you are in, and many other factors.
So can you speak a little bit about that? So when it comes to hiring salespeople and that personality, what is that personality that you're looking for? And what is it that makes that person stand out as being a particularly good potential candidate?
We really have a list of traits that we would be looking for. I will name a few. One is coachability, curiosity, and drive. So those would be 3 examples. So these are personality traits that we are looking for in salespeople and that we're actually testing them for to see if they have them. Well, curiosity, for instance, is, I think, one of the very most important ones by far.
Yeah, and I think also when it comes to recruiting and building a sales team locally, but one that is thinking globally, it's important to have something that people are excited to sell and excited to bring to the market.
Right, and yeah, and actually we do have quite a few, not quite a few, we have many successful companies and many successful products here, very successful ones, like Mintos, Twino, Printify, Printful, Spot, SonarWorks, Nordigen, many others. And actually some of them are doing also really, really amazing stuff with their sales teams as far as I had a chance to know. So, well, we have something to offer to them, to those talented people that are actually, that really are hungry for success. And I guess, well, I really love our neighbors, Estonians, but I guess everybody here also would like to prove that, well, actually we can do as well. So why not to do that?
Yeah, and kind of bringing the talk back to the title, talking about Riga, we have a lot of really successful companies here and a really developing ecosystem of great talent. And also that's something that any of the founders in this room can really draw from the experience of these companies that have gone before.
Yeah, and that's maybe what we actually need to learn as Latvians. I mean, I'm sorry, I'll say now in Latvian, but instead of, turēt sveci zem pūra, we have to share and actually grow together as an ecosystem. And yeah, that's actually something that I personally, for instance, can do, that other people from other companies can do, get together and kind of like, yeah, for instance, talking about sales, huge potential just to develop the market here.
Great, and I think that's a perfect example of being able to develop a sales team locally, but that also can think in a global way. So whether it's from the ecosystem side to something that is much larger than that.
Well, definitely, and there are examples, and there are playbooks, and there is knowledge, and there are case studies, and there is proven success.
Great. Well, on that note, I think thank you all for your attention. It was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was very insightful. So I hope to see new sales teams coming to Riga and building hubs, sales hubs for new tech companies in Riga.